Let me ask you something. You have survived wars, heartbreaks, recessions, and everything life has thrown at you. You have raised families, built careers, and watched the world change in ways nobody could have predicted. But here is the truth nobody is sitting you down to tell you. Once you cross that 80-year milestone, your body, your mind, and your entire world begin to shift in ways that are completely out of your control. It does not matter how healthy you are, how active you have been, or how positive your mindset is. These 5 things are coming, and the only question is whether you will be ready for them or completely blindsided. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you could change the way you spend every single day from this moment forward. Welcome back. If you're watching this for the first time, this channel is dedicated to helping people live their later years with dignity, awareness, and real, honest information. Today, we are talking about something most people avoid like the plague. We are talking about what happens to the human body and mind after the age of 80. Not the motivational version of aging, not the Instagram filter version, the real version. Now, before you think this is going to be a doom and gloom video, let me stop you right there. Understanding what is coming is not depressing. It is actually one of the most powerful things you can do. When you know what to expect, you can prepare. You can adapt. You can make choices today that will protect your independence and your quality of life for years to come. So whether you are approaching 80 yourself, or you have a parent or loved one in their 80s, this information is going to matter to you deeply. Let us get into it. Your sleep architecture completely changes, and fighting. It only makes it worse. You used to be able to fall asleep anywhere, on a couch, in a car, after a big holiday dinner. It did not matter. But after 80, sleep becomes one of the most complicated and frustrating parts of daily life, and almost nobody talks about why. Here is what is actually happening inside your brain. As we age, the brain produces less melatonin, the hormone that signals to your body that it is time to sleep. But after 80, something even more significant occurs. The structure of your sleep itself changes. Scientists call this sleep architecture. In your younger years, your sleep moved through predictable cycles of light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep, which is the dream stage where your brain does most of its memory consolidation and emotional processing. After 80, you spend far less time in deep sleep. Some studies show that people in their 80s may spend as little as 5 to 10% of their total sleep time in deep sleep, compared to 20% or more in younger adults. What does this feel like from the inside? You wake up more often during the night. You fall asleep earlier in the evening, but then find yourself wide awake at 2 or 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling with no idea how to get back to sleep. You feel tired during the day, even after what seemed like a full night of rest. And because you are exhausted during the day, you may take naps, which then disrupt your nighttime sleep even further. It becomes a frustrating cycle. Now here is where most people make the mistake that turns a manageable change into a serious problem. They fight it. They force themselves to stay awake until their old bedtime. They lie in bed for hours hoping sleep will come. They take sleeping pills without understanding how those medications interact with other prescriptions they are on. And in the case of sleeping medications, the risks after age 80 are significant. They can cause dangerous falls, confusion, and memory problems that mirror the early signs of dementia. What actually helps? First, accept the new rhythm instead of resisting it. If your body naturally wants to sleep at 8 and wake at 4, working with that pattern rather than against it can dramatically reduce your frustration. Second, exposure to natural morning light within an hour of waking helps regulate your circadian rhythm and signals your brain to produce alertness chemicals at the right time. Third, keeping your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet sounds obvious, but makes a measurable difference in how much deep sleep your body can achieve. And here is something that surprises most people. Exercise, even gentle movement like a short walk after dinner, has been shown in research to improve sleep quality in older adults more effectively than many medications. Your body still responds to physical activity. It still needs that wind down signal that movement provides. Sleep is not just about feeling rested. Poor sleep after 80 is directly linked to faster cognitive decline, increased risk of cardiovascular disease, and a weakened immune system. Understanding that your sleep has changed is the first step toward managing it intelligently. Your relationship with time, memory, and the past becomes the dominant force in your inner life. This one is both profound and genuinely surprising to most people who have not experienced it personally. After 80, the way your mind experiences time undergoes a fundamental shift, and it is not just about forgetting where you put your keys. Let us start with what the research actually says about memory in your 80s. There are different types of memory, and they age at very different rates. Working memory, which is your ability to hold information in mind in the short term, like remembering a phone number long enough to dial it, does decline after 80. Processing speed slows, meaning it takes longer to retrieve information from storage. This is normal and expected. But here is the part that surprises people. Long-term autobiographical memory, your memories of your own life, your experiences, the people you have loved, the moments that shaped you, often remains remarkably intact and sometimes even becomes more vivid. This is called the reminiscence bump, a well-documented phenomenon where people in their 80s and beyond report that memories from their late teens and 20s feel particularly sharp and emotionally present. What this creates is a profound psychological experience that is sometimes called a life review. Your mind, particularly in quiet moments, naturally begins to revisit, re-examine, and sometimes replay the major events of your life. This is not pathology. It is not a symptom of something going wrong. Psychologist Erik Erikson described this as a natural developmental stage of late life, a process of achieving what he called ego integrity, which is essentially making peace with the life you have lived. But it can also become a source of real suffering if it tips into rumination over regrets, unresolved grief, or things left unsaid. The difference between life review as a source of meaning and life review as a source of pain often comes down to whether you have people to share those memories with. After 80, social circles have inevitably shrunk. Friends and partners have passed away. Family members are busy with their own lives. The isolation that comes from having fewer people to share your inner world with is one of the most underreported challenges of life in your 80s, and one of the most damaging to both mental and physical health. Research consistently shows that chronic loneliness after age 80 is associated with higher rates of cognitive decline, depression, and even earlier mortality. What can be done? Intentional storytelling is one of the most powerful tools available. Recording your memories, whether through writing, audio, or video, gives you a purpose for revisiting the past while creating something of lasting value for the people who will come after you. Grief counselling, even later in life, can help process losses that have accumulated over decades. And something as simple as a regular scheduled phone call with a family member or friend creates an anchor of connection that measurably improves mental health. Your body's ability to regulate temperature, blood pressure, and basic physical systems becomes unreliable. This is a practical and sometimes dangerous change that most people are completely unprepared for. After 80, your autonomic nervous system, the part of your body that controls all the things you never have to think about, like your heartbeat, your blood pressure, your body temperature, your digestion, begins to become less efficient and less responsive. Let us talk about body temperature first, because the consequences of this change can be life-threatening, and they are often invisible until it is too late. The ability to both generate heat and dissipate heat diminishes significantly after 80. Your body sweats less efficiently, which means that on a hot day, you may be experiencing dangerous levels of internal heat without the normal warning signals that would prompt you to cool down. At the same time, your ability to generate heat through shivering is also reduced, which means cold environments that would merely be uncomfortable for a younger person can become genuinely dangerous for someone in their 80s. Every year, heat waves and cold snaps claim a disproportionate number of victims over 80, and the reason is almost always this same physiological change. The warning signals that should tell your body you are in danger have become quieter. You may not feel hot enough to seek shade. You may not feel cold enough to put on a coat. And by the time symptoms appear, the situation may already be serious. Blood pressure regulation changes too, in a specific and often surprising way. After 80, many people develop something called orthostatic hypertension, which is a sudden drop in blood pressure that occurs when you stand up after sitting or lying down. For a moment, your brain is not receiving enough blood, which creates dizziness, visual changes, and sometimes complete loss of consciousness. This is one of the leading causes of falls in people over 80, and falls, as you may know, are one of the most dangerous events that can happen to someone at this age. Falls after 80 are not like falls in your 40s. A hip fracture in someone in their 80s carries a genuinely sobering set of statistics. It can lead to a cascade of complications including surgery, immobility, pneumonia, and a significant reduction in overall life expectancy. Understanding that your blood pressure regulation has changed and taking simple precautions like sitting at the edge of the bed for a minute before standing, holding onto something when you rise, and making sure your environment is free of tripping hazards can quite literally be the difference between independence and catastrophe. Digestion also slows significantly after 80. Food moves through the digestive system more slowly, the stomach produces less acid, and absorption of critical nutrients, including vitamin B12, calcium, and vitamin D, becomes less efficient. This creates a paradox where someone may be eating reasonably well, but actually becoming malnourished in specific vital nutrients, with downstream effects on bone strength, nerve function, and cognitive clarity. Your immune system begins operating like an understaffed army, and the enemies take advantage for most of your life. Your immune system was a formidable and largely invisible ally. When viruses and bacteria found their way into your body, your immune cells identified them, attacked them, and in many cases created lasting memory of how to defeat them again in the future. After 80, this system undergoes a dramatic change that immunologists call immunosenescence, which is essentially the aging of the immune system. What this means in practical terms is multiple things happening at once. The thymus gland, which produces the T cells that are central to your immune response, has been shrinking since your 20s. By your 80s, it is largely replaced by fatty tissue and produces very few new T cells. The T cells you do have are older and less adaptable. They are less capable of recognizing new threats, which is one reason why infections that a younger immune system would clear quickly can become prolonged and dangerous for someone in their 80s. At the same time, something called chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging by researchers, tends to increase. Your immune system is not becoming weaker in every sense. In some ways, it is becoming more reactive, just in less useful ways. It produces inflammatory signals that, over time, contribute to heart disease, cognitive decline, diabetes, and cancer. The immune system after 80 is a system that has worked hard for 8 decades and is showing the strain. What does this look like in real life? Infections that were minor inconveniences in earlier life become serious events. A urinary tract infection that a 40-year-old would clear in a few days can, in someone over 80, cause confusion, hallucinations, and life-threatening complications if not treated promptly. Pneumonia becomes one of the leading causes of death in people over 80, not because the bacteria are different, but because the immune response is. Even common shingles, which is a reactivation of the chickenpox virus that has been dormant in your nervous system since childhood, becomes dramatically more likely after 80 because the immune suppression that kept it dormant begins to weaken. Vaccines work differently after 80 as well. The flu vaccine, for example, is significantly less effective in people over 80 than in younger adults because the immune system cannot mount as robust an antibody response. This is why higher dose formulations and adjuvanted vaccines have been developed specifically for older adults. What can be done? Nutrition matters enormously. Protein intake is particularly critical as the immune system requires amino acids to produce antibodies and immune cells, and many people over 80 eat less protein than their body needs. Zinc, selenium, and vitamin D all play documented roles in immune function and are commonly deficient in older adults. And prompt medical attention for even seemingly minor infections is essential because the window between minor infection and serious complication is much narrower after 80 than at any earlier point in life. Your sense of purpose and the meaning you derive from daily life must be actively reconstructed, or it simply disappears. This last one is the one people talk about the least, but it may be the most important of all 5. And it is the one where you have the most control. After 80, the structures that gave life meaning for decades have often dissolved. Career is long over. Children are grown and have their own lives. A spouse may have passed away. Physical limitations may have narrowed the range of activities available. The social roles that defined your identity, parent, professional, community leader, neighbour, change or disappear entirely. And what fills that space matters profoundly. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps and wrote one of the most influential books of the 20th century, argued that meaning is not something you find passively. It is something you actively create through the choices you make, the love you give, and the suffering you choose to bear with dignity. His work has particular resonance for people in their 80s because the research on aging consistently shows that people who report a strong sense of purpose live longer, maintain cognitive function longer, and report significantly higher life satisfaction than those who do not. But here is the challenge. After 80, the old sources of purpose may genuinely no longer be available, and the new ones do not arrive automatically. This is why depression in people over 80 is dramatically underdiagnosed and undertreated. It is often masked as normal aging, dismissed by family members, and even medical providers as simply a natural response to difficult circumstances. But depression in your 80s is not inevitable, and it is not untreatable. Finding new sources of meaning requires intentionality. For some people, it is creative expression, whether painting, writing, or music. Things that do not require physical strength and have no retirement age. For others, it is mentorship, passing on accumulated wisdom to younger generations who are hungry for exactly the perspective that decades of lived experience provides. For others, it is spiritual deepening, using the closeness to life's end not as something to be feared, but as a clarifying force that strips away the trivial and illuminates what genuinely matters. Intergenerational connection is one of the most powerful sources of purpose and cognitive stimulation available after 80. Time spent with grandchildren or great-grandchildren is not just pleasurable. Research shows it actively stimulates cognitive function, reduces depression, and provides a sense of legacy that is deeply meaningful. Learning new skills, even modest ones, provides the brain with novelty and challenge that helps maintain neural plasticity. Gardening, cooking new recipes, learning to use technology that keeps you connected to people you love, all of these provide daily goals and small accomplishments that accumulate into a life that still feels forward-moving. The people who thrive in their 80s are not the ones who had the easiest path. They are the ones who adapted. They are the ones who grieved what was lost and then looked, with clear eyes and open hearts, at what was still possible. So there they are, 5 things that happen once you turn 80, whether you like it or not. Sleep that restructures itself, memory that pulls you deeper into your own story, a body that requires new levels of attention and care, an immune system that needs your active support, and a sense of purpose that must be deliberately rebuilt if it is going to exist at all. None of these are sentences. Every single one of them is a challenge that, with the right knowledge and the right mindset, can be met with something far more powerful than fear. And that is preparation. If this video gave you something real to think about, I want to ask you to do 3 things right now. First, Share this video with someone you love who needs to hear it, whether that is a parent, a grandparent, or a friend approaching this milestone. The gift of honest information is one of the greatest gifts you can give. Second, leave a comment below telling me which of these 5 things surprised you the most, or share your own experience with aging if you are in your 80s yourself. This community grows stronger every time one of you speaks honestly about what you have lived through. And third, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications because we put out honest, research-based content about aging, health, and living fully at every stage of life every single week. Getting older is not the enemy, being unprepared is. And now you are a little more prepared. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.